Dying for Pie is one of the most character-dense, story-driven, and, most importantly, hilarious 11 minutes of television ever put to screen. How could the SpongeBob writers craft such a brilliantly executed story? If that question interests you, make sure to keep watching as we break down how to write an episode like Dying for Pie. So, Dying for Pie, like all great stories, takes a character on a journey where they have their flaws challenged and their perspectives changed. The protagonist of this episode is Squidward, and the opening of the episode makes one thing very clear. He finds this little yellow guy insufferable. What's his name again? SpongeBob. Right, yes, SpongeBob. The SpongeBob-Squidward dynamic is something regular viewers of the show are quite familiar with. They are characters who are completely opposite in terms of their attitudes towards life, with SpongeBob being overly positive and Squidward being overly negative. Squidward has 3 interactions with SpongeBob in less than the first minute of the episode that re-established this dynamic. The episode opens on Squidward playing piano, only to find SpongeBob ruining his playing with a Krusty Krab dinging bell, showing that Squidward finds SpongeBob so annoying, it haunts his dreams. Then we see Squidward walking in, the shot speaks for itself, and then SpongeBob enthusiastically greets Squidward, to which Squidward doesn't respond. So with these simple moments, we are introduced to the SpongeBob-Squidward relationship, and we are shown that Squidward's main want is to have as little interaction with this yellow cube as possible. These moments also establish Squidward's character flaw. He's too cynical, but the very beginning of the episode with Squidward's piano playing dream does give one extra layer to Squidward's character, his artistic side, which does show that somewhere inside Squidward there is a desire for something greater and that he isn't some unfeeling grouch. And all of this is established without a single word from Squidward himself. All it takes is a couple simple little interactions and the foundation is set for a great story. Then comes the first moment where Squidward's character flaw is challenged, when Mr. Krabs tells Squidward to participate in an employee brotherhood day. Squidward at first tries to refuse, stating, "I won't act brotherly towards that guy." I love the little moment it shows with SpongeBob after Squidward says this. Something about SpongeBob's behavior in this episode is that, while it's silly, it's not too silly and over the top. The SpongeBob moments in this episode do just enough to make us understand why Squidward finds him annoying, but don't do too much for us as the audience to find him annoying, which allows us to want to see Squidward come around and be his friend. In later seasons, when SpongeBob annoys even the audience, it makes us not root for that positive outcome. This more subtle SpongeBob behavior is best illustrated by SpongeBob's gift to Squidward, the sweater made of eyelashes. While the choice of SpongeBob giving Squidward an itchy sweater that says "I heart you" might seem like a simple one, it's actually a carefully crafted writing decision that accomplishes making the audience understand both that Squidward finds the gift annoying and still makes us like SpongeBob for making it, which is not an easy line to toe, by the way. The way they accomplish this is by having the sweater be made of eyelashes. The fact that it is made of eyelashes does make us understand Squidward's annoyance because that would undoubtedly be an itchy sweater, but also because SpongeBob is missing his own eyelashes when he says it's made of eyelashes, it shows us that SpongeBob actually used his own eyelashes to make the sweater. This is a common cartoon strategy where a character does a thing that is literally impossible, like in this case making a sweater out of their own eyelashes, to show the audience just how dedicated they are to that task, and how much they went through to complete it. After Squidward rejects the sweater, SpongeBob makes another sweater out of his tears. It shows us that SpongeBob is so sad about the rejection of the sweater that he literally breaks the laws of physics. At this point, Squidward must figure out a gift for SpongeBob, where he encounters some pirates hauling pies, to which Squidward asks if they are homemade, and the pirates respond,
"They were made in a factory. A bomb factory. They're bombs."
With this line, this simple story about a guy being annoyed with his coworker has just introduced life and death stakes. After the greedy pirate captain lies about it being a bomb to make a few bucks, Squidward brings the pie to Krabs, thinking the whole charade over. An explosion happens, because of course it does, and when Squidward and Krabs return to the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob licks his fingers, which leads them to believe that SpongeBob ate the bomb. Krabs then establishes a timetable of SpongeBob's impending doom, setting the time of detonation at sunset, leading Squidward to make the choice to spend SpongeBob's last day on Earth spending time with him and doing anything he wants in what is a surprisingly heartfelt scene. Like, I know this episode is known for being one of the funniest in the series, but Squidward really sells the emotional stakes of what's going on here.
There's gonna be love!
Props to Roger Bumpus's voice acting. So what's being set up here is a plot that we see a lot plot in the SpongeBob series. Squidward has to spend time with SpongeBob for X reason. It's a way of teaming the two up even though Squidward hates the little guy. Episodes like Pizza Delivery, Jellyfishing, and Club SpongeBob all force Squidward to be around our favorite fry cook for an extended period of time. However, even though these other episodes are great, Dying for Pie is different for one main reason: choice. In Pizza Delivery, Squidward has to spend time with SpongeBob because it's a part of his job. In Jellyfishing, he's injured and can't get away. In Club SpongeBob, he's stranded in the kelp forest. But Dying for Pie puts Squidward in a situation where he chooses to walk up to SpongeBob and say, "Hey, let's hang out." And he does it for a pretty good reason, literally believing that it's SpongeBob's last day on Earth and he knows this would make him happy. This is sometimes the beauty of characters in TV shows. We can see them put into these situations and actually see how they would react to something so serious. It makes you think, what would you do if you were in this situation, as absurd as it may be? Then comes the list of things SpongeBob wants to do with Squidward, which is a classic cartoon montage of escalating jokes and moments all framed within completing SpongeBob's list. While to the casual viewer, this seems like nothing more than a series of bits all loosely strung together, if you more deeply examine the moments the writers chose to include and the order in which they included them, you can get an idea of the emotional and comedic journey that the viewer is taking. The first thing on SpongeBob's list is to introduce Squidward to everyone in town. This is another cartoonish exaggeration similar to the eyelash sweater. Obviously, it's impossible to introduce someone to everyone in a town in a single afternoon, but by the episode choosing to make this impossibly long task the first thing that Squidward has to do, and communicating that task with a mini montage of Squidward having to interact with various background fish, in less than 20 seconds it sells that Squidward had to go through quite a lot on only task number 1. And then, the second thing on the list, do the exact same thing again, wearing a salmon suit. Then the third thing on the list is a much smaller task than the first two. Squidward has to listen to an unfunny knock-knock joke, which is funny to the audience because it's unfunny to Squidward. It's a good contrast to have the third thing on the list be much shorter, since the first two things were long tasks, as it makes the actual time it would take to get through the list more ambiguous. Next up is Friends in Reverse, just a silly little thing to do. Again, another seemingly small one. Then they make this noise, which apparently if you look closely at the list, it says it's act like an ape. Huh, never knew that until I more closely examined the episode. Then SpongeBob ties himself to Squidward's face and gives him directions. Then after that, the writers really ramp up the absurdity by having SpongeBob perform open heart surgery, which is funny because that's not exactly a thing that you think that SpongeBob would have on his list. The open heart surgery is the last thing on the list that we see, with SpongeBob checking off a few more things to show they're coming up on the end of the list. There's a moment where for some reason SpongeBob checks off in his salmon suit again. Not sure why that is. The animators must have been strapped for time, so they just reused the shot. Literally unwatchable. So after the list montage, we get the last thing on the list.
Watch the sunset with Squidward.
And this moment right here is the whole reason the writers took us on this little joke montage in the first place. See, in the wackiness of SpongeBob's list, we and Squidward forgot why this was happening. But as soon as the word sunset is uttered, the tone completely shifts. We remember the bomb. Then we get to the sunset scene, which starts off with a really strong joke.
Just the three of us. You, me, and this brick wall you built between us.
But the most impactful line of this scene, I think, is probably this one.
If I were to die right now in some sort of fiery explosion due to the carelessness of a friend, that'd just be okay.
While SpongeBob says this without knowing what Squidward knows, it does show that, at the very least, Squidward succeeded in what he set out to do. He truly did give SpongeBob the exact last day on Earth he would have wanted, and there's something beautiful about that. I also just love the matter-of-fact statement of,
due to the carelessness of a friend.
while I'm sure no one watching this has ever been in an exact situation where they let someone eat a pie that was actually a bomb, we've all been in situations where we've hurt someone, and we would do anything to make it right. And at its core, that's what this story is really about. It's about someone who did something wrong and went through their own personal hell in order to try and make the situation as right as he possibly could. That's what makes SpongeBob one of the greatest cartoons of all time. Take away the nautical nonsense and the Krusty Krab and the slapstick humor and the absurdity of a pie being a bomb and all all these crazy faces that would later become memes, you've got a simple story about a guy who screwed up and somewhat redeemed himself. And if you ever want to write a cartoon episode as good as this one, you need a strong foundation like that. Then we get to the explosion. I mean, we all know it's coming, right? Can't introduce a bomb in the first act if it doesn't go off in the third, Chekhov's gun and all that, or in this case, Chekhov's pie. And then of course, SpongeBob does end up being alive, but for a few seconds after the explosion happens, Squidward, while truly believing SpongeBob to be gone, has this to say.
At least I was able to make his last few hours meaningful.
And then he says,
I am such a good person.
like, dude just thinks he killed his friend and coworker and he's complimenting himself. But at the same time, I can't even dislike him for it. One, because the comedic timing is so good, and two, because he really does show genuine remorse here. And we've seen how much he's changed over the course of this episode. Then another explosion happens, which reveals SpongeBob blowing bomb bubbles, which is such a perfect SpongeBob way to tie together that story beat. And then we get to the final scene, which is just a non-stop rapid fire of brilliant laugh lines, including my favorite line of the episode, where SpongeBob asks,
You want me to explode?
and then he says,
Gary, you are gonna finish your dessert, and you are gonna like it!
and I just want to dig into the layers of this line. First off, it hammers home about how even now, SpongeBob has no idea what's going on, to the point where he doesn't even think of a literal explosion at the word explode. And also that SpongeBob's idea of yelling at someone is telling his pet to finish his dessert, which is the perfect balance of absurd and wholesome. Keep in mind, this is an 11-minute episode, and the reason that this 11-minute episode accomplishes so much with its limited runtime is that the lines and moments pack in so much with so little. This dessert line, the eyelash sweater, introducing Squidward to everyone in town wearing a salmon suit, and so many other moments in the episode just pack such a dense punch that no second in this episode is wasted. It's such a night and day difference from much lower quality episodes that this very same show would produce only a few years later. Like season 6's The Splinter, which struggled so hard to fill 11 minutes with story to the point where I felt like it was just there to waste my time. Which, by the way, I also did a video where I rewrote The Splinter into a better episode, so if you're interested in that video, check it out right after this one. And then of course, to top off this perfect episode, Pie Bomb goes off right in Squidward's face with that classic SpongeBob nuclear explosion footage, and one last ouch from Squidward at the end, just so we know he survived. And that's dying for pie. There aren't a lot of pieces of media that I can look at and say, literally flawless, no criticism, but I cannot think of a single thing that I could change in this episode to tell a more effective story, other than to not have SpongeBob check off salmon suit twice on the list, but that's more of a continuity error, not a story error. It's truly one of the greatest cartoon episodes put to screen, and I hope that by examining Dying for Pie today, you either can one day write your own story that is just as effective, or have gained the tools to judge other stories using the standards I've laid out today. Let me know what you think of Dying for Pie and what your favorite joke of the episode is down in the comments below. If you like this video, liking and subscribing goes a long way, but if you really want to help me get this channel to a place where I can make more consistent quality content for you guys, I do have a Patreon, or you can become a channel member. Also, check out my gaming channel where I cover the SpongeBob GBA games, among other games. That's all for me. See you next time.